Hey people, today's episode of WTF is sponsored exclusively by GoToMeeting. You can try GoToMeeting for 30 days by using the promo code WTF at GoToMeeting.com. It's the fast and simple way to meet and collaborate online. Now it's time for the show.
Lock the gate!
Are we doing this? Really? Wait for it. Are we doing this? Wait for it.
Ow!
What the fuck?
WTF.
And it's also, what the fuck?
What's wrong with me? It's time for WTF.
What the fuck?
With Marc Maron.
All right, let's do this. How are you, what the fuckers, what the fuck buddies, what the fuckaholics, what the fuckadelics? That's all I'm going to say today. Those are the only names I'm going to do. I'm actually getting a little tired of that. How do you feel about it? Have we outgrown the list of names? Maybe not. I don't know. Sometimes I think, well, maybe I shouldn't have that all right at the beginning with all the fucks at the beginning because there are people driving kids to school, picking kids up at school, driving with children in the car. Maybe they want to listen without worrying about that first opening salvo of fucks. I am Marc Maron. This is WTF. I'm happy to be here. I just got back from Nashville, Tennessee. And I have a great time, as great a time as I can have whenever I go to the South. And I always, whenever I'm in Nashville, there's part of me that's like, why can't I just live here? Why can't I just get a house for about a third of the money it's going to cost me to add on to this house and just not pay state income tax and live in the American South in Nashville, Tennessee? Why can't I just do that? I don't know. Then I have to start flying people to my garage. You want to do my show? We'd have to put a budget for travel in. We would only exclusively do musicians and occasional touring comics that would come through Nashville. It's a beautiful part of the country. The people are always nice. I am done with stereotyping Southerners because every time I'm there, I meet a lot of very nice people, not just polite people in that malignant Southern way that you don't trust, that politeness that makes you say, are they really being polite or are they just tolerating me? Do they want me out? No, I mean genuinely nice people, artists, bakers, coffee makers, people who sell shoes, record pressing people. There's a lot of good people in the South, and I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm no longer going to adhere to any stereotypes. A couple other things I did. Oh, by the way, Thom Yorke is on the show today from the band Radiohead. I spoke to him during the recording sessions of his recent project, Atoms for Peace. It's interesting because I was originally supposed to interview both he and Flea, who was also part of it, but Flea called in sick. Not to the interview, but he didn't go to the session that day because he wasn't feeling well. And I was able to talk to Tom, which I think was a beautiful coincidence. Because I was nervous about talking to both of them. Musicians are tricky for me to begin with, and Flea's a pretty large personality from what I understand. But to just be able to sit down with Tom, off one of the rooms, we did it at Rick Rubin's studio, which is this old mansion that once belonged to Harry Houdini up off Laurel Canyon Boulevard. It's a pretty stunning property, but now it's just a recording facility. And I was able to get about an hour in with Tom. And I'd heard that he's difficult. I know that he's a bit of a rebel, but I have that in me as well. But I thought we had a lovely conversation, and we'll play that in just a second. While if you're still listening now, we'll get to the interview, but it's not going to include any of his comments or anything relating to the fight he's having with Spotify. I know that he pulled the Atoms for Peace album off. He pulled some of his solo work off. He and his producer made a stand against Spotify around royalties and the ripoff of musicians. But this interview took place before all that. This interview took place a little while ago when they were recording the new Atoms for Peace stuff. So that will not be talked about because it was not on the radar then. And it's weird when we talk about Spotify, about internet, about how do you protect stuff, what is the best delivery system, how do you continue to make money in a world where anybody can get anything for free. I was able to go back in time. I know some of you know that I've gotten into the vinyl lately, but I'm not a nerd. I'm not a vinyl nerd. I'm not a record collector. I'm not looking for priceless pieces of vinyl. I primarily get vinyl so I can listen to music on vinyl. Now, you can have whatever opinion you want about vinyl as to whether or not it's all hokum. It's not, the quality is not better than digital if you're one of those guys. Whatever. I don't give a fuck. I like records, and I'm enjoying playing records, and it's a reasonable midlife crisis to have. You know, I've got my tube amp. I've got my records. I didn't spend a lot of money on this stuff. Records are not that expensive, and they're a beautiful part of life, and they're a beautiful part of my childhood, and they're a beautiful way to listen to music, and they're tangible. You hold them, you look at them, you have a cover. I know all of you have heard this stuff around records. And, you know, I know it's a reason. You know how you know if something is a reasonable midlife crisis? I got a tube amp. I can't wrap it around a tree. I can't get in trouble or lose all my money because I fucked it. If you check, yes on those two, I can't lose all my money or get in trouble for fucking it, and I can't wrap it around a tree, and it didn't cost you that much. That's a reasonable midlife crisis. But it's also a way to listen to music in a very organic, almost magical, way. It's great. So here's what happens. Just by coincidence, the United Record Pressing Company is in Nashville. The guy who markets for them, their marketing guy, Jay Millar, he reached out to me and said, "You want a tour?" And I'm like, "It's in Nashville, and I know that they do Jack White's records." And I was like, "Yeah, I'd be interested in that." So he walked me through his, the record plant. This is a record pressing plant. And the interesting thing about a record pressing company is that they are not beholden to labels. They press records for everybody. They just press records. And this company presses about 30% of the records available in the world. And they've been around since 1949. And they've been pressing records since then. It was a fascinating conversation. Not because I'm a record nerd, but just because I think when people talk about hipsters, or they talk about, even when it comes down to sort of, local produce or the new farm movement or coffee or any of the stuff that gets sort of lumped in with this whole hipster movement, I mean, you can trivialize it. You can call it fashion. Oddly, I think a lot of the fashion that hipsters sort of utilize is originally from the American South. But that aside, I think what people are craving is something tangible, something intimate, something organic, something that they feel has some integrity to it. And I had no idea what to expect when I took this tour of the record pressing plant, but I was blown away because it reaches back to another time on some level, in another time of manufacturing, but it also, they are producing something tangible, something organic, something you can hold in your hand, something that is not digitized, that is not ones and zeros, is not vague, it is not really disposable. And the whole process, he took me through the whole process, right from raw vinyl beads. The raw vinyl, the virgin vinyl, comes in almost these little beads of vinyl. Then there are all these record pressing machines. They make 7-inch records. They make 45 records. A few of all the records that you have were pressed at this plant. There's a history to it. I mean, there was a time where this was the only way that people listened to music. You bought records. So to see these machines, which they don't even make anymore, and to see people working at these machines, working at a manufacturing job, and they had just dozens of these machines, all different types. Then to see the vinyl go in and to see the plates come down and press a record, and then it gets trimmed out around the edges, and I actually held a hot record. And it's almost magic. He explained it to me. I still don't understand how the music gets onto the record. It has something to do with grooves, but it's not some sort of weird computer magic. There's something beautifully organic about the whole thing. And I think that, a lot of people disregard that in terms of listening to vinyl or owning vinyl. It's not just about sound. It's about holding something real, watching something spin, knowing that the parts that are involved actually have a motor. And that goes all the way back to the manufacturing. People working to make records. They make 40,000 records a day at this place. And he said that the record business has never stopped. They've never stopped manufacturing records. Even like during the time where CDs were popular, you would think like, well, who bought records then? They kept making records, and they kept making a lot of dance records and a lot of the longer playing, club singles and stuff. But he said it's never really stopped. These machines don't even exist anymore. They don't make them. They have to have a machinist on site all the time in case a machine breaks down, or if they need a part, he's got to make the part. And I think Jack White had a lot to do with this, because I went over to Third Man, and now he's got a thing going. He was doing the all analog thing, but now he's taking it a step further, where he's recording direct to the acetate. No tape involved. He's got a machine where they do a live show and they record it direct to the platter, direct to acetate. There's no tape. They mix it on site and they make the template for the album right there at Third Man during a live performance. Now, that may seem trendy, or it may seem weird, or it may seem affected, but it is organic, it is pure, it is real. And each part of that process is human and directly compatible to machinery and to equipment and to real time. There's no fucking computer magic or breakdown of sound. I don't know. I find the whole thing very magical and very, profound. You know what? Also, to get back to the technological realm of things, meetings are essential to the way we work, people. No matter what you're doing, meetings help us share ideas, problem solve, be creative. But if your team is spread out in different locations, it can be impossible to get everyone together. That's why you should use GoToMeeting with HD Faces. It's the fast and simple way to meet and collaborate online. With GoToMeeting, it's easy to stay connected from wherever you are, whenever you need to. Just click on a link, turn on your webcam, and you're instantly connected to your team face-to-face in HD video conferencing. You can do it from your computer, your phone, or your tablet. This is the future, people. Holding meetings on your iPad. I tried out GoToMeeting, and it was pretty amazing. I didn't think I would have any reason to do that. But you know what? Everyone has a reason to do that. This is the way it's going to work. Let's say you're writing a screenplay. Let's say you have a business partner that doesn't live near you. I mean, within seconds, you're all on screen. You're talking directly. You're sharing ideas. You can move screens around. You can show your screen, or if you want to show something that you're working on to the people on the meeting. It was all pretty amazing and pretty futuristic, but I guess the future is here. So I tried it. Now you can try it. I'll give you a free demo. Try GoToMeeting. You can do it for free for 30 days. For this special offer, all you have to do is visit GoToMeeting.com, click the Try It Free button, and use the promo code WTF. That's GoToMeeting.com, and remember to use the promo code WTF. All right. Let's go now to my conversation with Thom Yorke.
We went to Magic Castle last week.
Oh, yeah? Were you heckling? Were you like, come on, where's a card?
No, we were trapped in the room. We couldn't get out,
Oh, okay.
And Barbra Streisand started playing really, really loud. And,
yeah.
Someone was like, flying through the air, but we had to get out.
I've been there once. You do feel like that once you get in there that there's no way out. It's a very bizarre thing. You're led through the bar and into a room, and then there's another choice of rooms.
It is. It's a vortex.
Do you like magic? I mean, were you entertained? No. Or are you more one of those guys who's sort of like, oh, that's ridiculous? I never seek out magic.
No, it was more like the horror.
Yeah. The horror of that level of entertainment. We're in the bowels of the entertainment.
I'm going to get in loads of trouble now, aren't I?
No. What do you think the magicians are going to, you're going to get a lot of hate mail from magicians?
Could do. Or maybe worse. Maybe I'll be in 3 pieces in boxes tomorrow morning.
Yeah, Thom Yorke is now involved in a magic trick involuntarily.
Yeah.
He was found in pieces.
The magician left the room. Refusing to put him back together.
Well, that'd be interesting. You just tour as a wheeled out head. Your head still functions.
I would sue you, but I can't find my hands.
Exactly. What's your feelings about California? Do you spend a lot of time out here, or do you like it?
I do really like it. Yeah. There's a big British expat population here, and it's the novelty of coming somewhere sunny where people, seem at least on the surface to be friendly, and
Oh, don't believe it.
yeah, well, obviously,
They're evil and predatory.
yeah. Well, of course, we're used to that, so it's okay. We ourselves have sharp edges.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, historically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, it's nice. I mean, it's nice to get away from the Tory party pulling Britain to pieces as well. That's always I like to get away from that and not think about it.
Is that like? Are the politics constantly in your face?
It was just something I was thinking a lot last night. It was like, I mean, things are bad here, but I don't know what the situation really is here. Obviously, I can't the way that it works, the mechanics of it. But in Britain, we have a party who we didn't vote for, pulling the country to dismantling things beyond the point where they can be fixed again. And
we went through that.
Yeah, and we didn't even ask. We didn't even vote for them, but there they are doing it and telling them that they won't stray from the path of righteousness. Essentially,
exactly?
While everybody, including the IMF, says, "Please don't do this."
Right.
And they still do it.
What exactly is it?
Oh, they're doing it. They're dismantling the NHS. They're dismantling the school system. They're using what's happening with the banking system as an excuse to do a load of other shit. What's that Naomi Klein shock doctrine? You know that concept?
Yeah.
Sorry, you didn't expect to be talking about.
No. I used to talk about politics every day.
Okay, cool. Yeah, well, that whole concept of you have one, crisis.
Yeah.
And you use that crisis to
as a portal
to do a load of other shit without people knowing, putting it under the same veil, dismantling infrastructure, opening it up to private enterprise, blah blah blah.
Yeah, the privatization of public works and everything else.
It was the the neocon thing to do. It was like, well, it's happening in a way that's never happened before in Britain, and they're using the excuse of the debts or whatever, but really even the IMF says it's nothing to do with that.
So are they dismantling all what they see as socialized services?
They just, I think their whole raison d'etre to even be a party at all is to be as right-wing as they can, because they know, because to me it's all PR,
Sure.
Cameron is a PR guy, and the whole concept is like, the only way we can possibly stay in power is if we look like Thatcher looked, as in unrelenting, following a path without question.
A narrow path.
A narrow path.
Yeah.
A path of
right through all the working people who are crying.
Yeah, well, they don't really vote for them, so they're not really bothered about that.
Yeah.
And they know, in terms of how they look, that's the only way they can maintain their support within their core, whatever.
Yeah.
So that you get this bizarre scenario where they're, whatever they've chosen, they won't turn around from, they won't back away from, even though they probably know it's a mistake. It's because if they did, they know they would lose power. So they carry on. You know what I mean?
I always wonder.
It's all one big PR thing.
Yeah, but I always wonder if they do know it's a mistake. You'd like to think that they have human hearts and that somehow their conscience is bothering them, but somehow they've rationalized their agenda into something that they think is the best for usually business, and then ultimately for everybody, because the market will level off.
Yeah, exactly. But that's the point, isn't it? Because they're surrounded by lobbyists, business lobbyists who are telling them that this is the way to go, and they're the people who put them there. Yeah,
they're owned. They're whores. They're corporate shills.
But that whole trickle down thing, which Thatcher started talking about in the 80s,
it doesn't work.
No one believes that.
Of course not.
That's up there with Americans still believing in a meritocracy.
Right, exactly. Basically, what trickle down amounts to is, well, the poor will adapt or die.
Exactly.
And they're nothing but an obstacle, anyways.
And the whole argument about, well, if these people make money, then we all make money. It's obviously falls down when you've got the whole concept of tax dodging.
Exactly. Yeah, we'll make all their money. Yeah. How much of this, in terms of your intellectually and emotionally, I mean, when did you start really thinking about this stuff? Because I know you had battles with record companies and seeking freedom from that. It's not that much different. Was that when you awakened politically, or were you always like that?
No, I was always into it. I was always into it, even at school, even at a private boarding school. I was always a chippy left-winger.
Yeah.
Even though my father wasn't.
What'd your father do?
We used to have, we went through a phase, me and my brother, of having the dinner arguments, the political arguments.
Right.
They went for 4, 5, 6 years, where, my mum would have to sort of say, okay, that's enough.
Yeah.
Because it would end up in stand-up rows.
So you and your brother were on opposite ends of the spectrum?
No, we were both coming from the left.
Oh, so you're doing it to aggravate your father?
Well, no. Anyway, he was a nuclear physicist, and then he did other things as well. Anyway,
But how does that play out? I mean, if he was a nuclear physicist, then, I mean, he must have had to deal with the dialogue as a lefty with sort of like, do you make bombs, Dad?
No. It was like he wasn't doing that long enough for that to be an issue. He did other things.
Research.
Well, anyway. It was more, there was that. It was that period, the Thatcher period, where a lot of people really did subscribe to the idea of like that somehow is this holy grail of capitalism is if we just free the market enough,
right?
And as was happening during the Reagan era here, if we free the market enough, then righteousness will prevail and we will all be rich. But actually, all that was happening is that the goldsmiths of this world were coming here and Britain and like buying it, pillaging it, taking the money and moving to an island and going mad.
That's exactly it. This idea that if you have completely unregulated free market capitalism, that will find its own level and everybody will benefit.
Yeah,
and the one thing they never talk about, which was indicated during the banking thing, was like, why you didn't take into mind that greed would somehow affect
your
philosophy?
Because the market is morally righteous.
There's no greed.
I wish they could come up with a set of more fluffy words for saying what we were just saying, though, because we both sound like chippy old lefties. But actually, none of what we're talking about is chippy or lefty. It's like
practical.
this is actually really it's the shit here.
This is it. It's the truth.
Give me some other words to use, and I'll explain them using those other words, like Bill and Ben, or I don't know, like in some in the language of Sesame Street.
So people could really understand.
Yeah, would that be a great episode of Sesame Street, wouldn't it?
It is fairly complicated, but I don't understand. I know in this country that the reason most people who will vote against their economic self-interest and not pay attention to the criminality of what's happening. I think somewhere in the American sensibility that they're like, they don't think it applies to them because they could be a millionaire. That could happen.
That's what I'm talking about with the meritocracy. There's like, if you work hard, you'll do well.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I'm going to win the lottery. Yeah, if you play the lottery enough.
What, really? You think so? Really? What really?
So in terms of like even talking about a very interesting thing happened when I was listening to the Atoms for Peace album in the car coming over.
Oh yes.
Yeah, because I had it plugged into my phone, and I had the phone plugged into the stereo, but I also had the GPS going. So what you had this your beautiful lyrical rhythms, and occasionally it's like turn right at Laurel Canyon, and it almost felt like some weird mix, like this is the GPS mix, and it seems to fold right in. It kind of works because there's a sort of beautiful kind of tone set by the lyrical thrust of the album, and it is about direction. This is the only direction I have during this song. It was very bizarre. But when you talk about politics and when you talk about the power of music, or even calling a band or a song "Atoms for Peace," how do you think? Like, I have to assume with your disposition that you think that there is something socially relevant and moving in that direction with the music. Do you feel that?
It's funny in this country. I sort of feel like. In Britain, when you talk about politics and stuff, it tends to become a very angry us and them thing quite quickly. What I liked about calling Atoms for Peace to me was the ultimately, you just use the word peace in it to me. Sort of, I like the references to the 70s. I like all that sort of thing about like the 68 movement and when I was born in 68 and. I kind of think a lot about, as well as obviously the Eisenhower speech and the nuclear thing. I forget about that, and sometimes I think about the idea of people on the streets.
Yeah.
And they're not doing anything; they're just on the streets.
Yeah.
The riots will only break out if the police charge them, and I've been on those protests and I've seen them do that. But if you just go. And you're just there, and you're always there. Like in Spain at the moment, like they're there every week.
Yeah,
I was in Bilbao. There was a different protest along the same bridge from this different, 400 or 500 people every single day with a different banner hanging down, but it was relentless, and we was there a few weeks ago, and they were just talking about how. Anyway, I'm going off the point. That idea of resistance, passive, but there you're just there, and you're animated, but it's peaceful,
Yeah.
Because I've been, when I was a kid, I used to go on protests and stuff. I went on one of the first big ones I went to was about student loans, which are now commonplace. But at the time, when I went to university, the idea was it was all paid for by the state. And obviously, being a student, we were pissed off about that because it meant the poor have less access to education.
Yeah.
At least that's how we argue it.
Right.
So we're on the other side of Westminster Bridge. Parliament is in session. Thatcher's extremely pissed off that we have the nerve to turn up that day and do that. So she calls the horses on us.
Uh-huh.
So there was we had the riot police in front of us, and I was sort of with my friend Stanley, who would do the artwork with.
Yeah.
We stood there, and there was the riot police with the plastic shields.
Yeah.
And everyone's getting kind of angry because they wouldn't let us cross the bridge. But it was kind of okay. It was pissed. We were pissed off. People had started throwing bits of wood and things, but it was all right.
Yeah.
Next thing we know, the shields part, and the horses just charged straight towards us.
Oh my God.
And there was this girl I saw who was pregnant, who had her leg broken. Everyone ran screaming. The horses, the policemen on the horses had batons, were whacking indiscriminately people's heads, and they were cuffing, arresting whoever they could find. It was insane.
Terrifying.
And basically, and then of course it gets reported that night as that we're troublemakers and so on. It's like, well, no, actually, we were there, and we were standing by the bridge, and then they do this thing called kettling, where they section off each other area like that.
Yeah.
Thatcher gets pissed off and says, and just calls the horses on us, beats the shit out of us.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
So in a sense that because I feel this. And I've been to I was at a relatively recent show of yours at, I think, Bonnaroo last year. That the idea that when you create, because it seems to me some of the music you're doing now creates, a vibe and a tone and a groove, and there's something, elating about it, and there's a build to it, but it's not like, it's not designed for relief. It's almost designed for movement and unity.
Huh.
And
well, I did. I mean, it's funny. I was talking to a friend of mine about this yesterday. We did. It sort of has dawned on us when we did the last Radiohead tour that sometimes, we did this show in Phoenix, and there was, I think because it was in Phoenix and the big shows don't happen a lot. In fact, Fleet emailed me about it at the time saying, people don't really play in Phoenix much at the moment because there's a lot of heavy shit going on.
Oh yeah, the conservatives there are crazy.
But it was like they all came out of the woodwork. All the people who don't like that's how it felt.
Yeah, your people.
Like the stoners and the e-heads and the old musos and everybody was like there in a big soup, and it kicked off. But through the music, and it was amazing. It was really, really amazing, and you felt like you were just part of this gathering, and I can't describe it, but like the room starts changing shape and shit when there's something in it. There's something in that collective. You have 40,000 people in a room who all move into the same groove.
Yeah, it's powerful.
There's something pretty powerful. I don't know what it is, but there's something weird going on there, definitely.
Yeah, and also I guess you probably, because at this point, the fans of yours and the fans of Radiohead and the fans of your solo stuff have evolved with you and understand where you're going.
To some extent, yeah, which I find bizarre, because the only reason that's happened is because we've just gone a sort of certain line and people have gone, oh, okay, and followed us. But there was no, I didn't wake up in the morning with messianic tendencies or anything.
No, I know.
But I think about it and like, that's really weird. That's mad.
But also, did you find, because you seem to have a sense of like you're surprised by it, but I have to imagine there was a moment, and I think you're relatively public about it, where you made a decision to evolve as opposed to repeat yourself. And you made a decision to, maybe the anthem rock business is not the business I want to be in. Perhaps, having, the hooks that, any idiot can go like, yeah, to.
Here comes the chorus, I've hit my distortion pedal.
Yeah. But so you must have been afraid that, well, I got to do this. But you were, at some point, must have been willing to lose them.
Yeah. Always. Yeah, there was a bit of that, but then there was also like if you're writing something and you mean it, you can't repeat yourself, and
right,
and you can't. I couldn't. To me, it's one of those. I go through my life, come what may, doing stuff because I can't not. It's like, well, this is my instinct is to go here and. That's it. I can't do anything about it. That's just how it is, I'm very lucky that people stayed with it, but it wasn't like I couldn't have done it another way. And also that thing of like, I think, you can't write. Even at art college and stuff, it's like you can't write stuff to please people. You have to write it because. It's what you've got. That's it. You sit down, you give it to someone. Or it's a painting or whatever. It's like, this is what I've got. This is it.
Yeah.
I couldn't have gone any other way. This is me here.
Is there an element of defiance to it? Because you seem like a guy who's...
Yeah, a little bit. Not very good with authority. Actually, I was going to say before, like when I was talking about the protests, the other thing about Atoms for Peace to me, and something I'd been thinking. I remember like. There was this whole period in Britain where I think it suddenly dawned on a lot of people who were involved in protesting that it really wasn't happening properly in the way that they wanted, because every time they went somewhere or got whatever, they just got the shit kicked about them by the police, or at least it was reported really badly. And so someone sort of somewhere within this movement, I think, and it was this movement called Reclaim the Streets, and they had a massive influence on me. And there was people I knew who knew them. They kept doing these stunts, and it was humour. So they would like do a protest. They did this one famous one on a motorway where someone wanted to create a bypass and shit. And it was just funny, man. It was just funny. They'd turn the whole thing on its head and go, you know what, I'm going to do something so stupid it would blow your mind.
Yeah.
So they got this giant, they made it like a parade, okay?
Yeah.
So they sort of shut the motorway down, and they just turned up, and they were a parade, and they walked onto the motorway, and the motorway stopped.
Yeah.
And they had this giant figure, like with a giant sort of skirt, and some girl on the top waving her arms about.
Yeah.
Underneath the skirt
Yeah.
was guys, as it walked along, with jackhammers chopping the motorway up. It was genius.
Good, awesome.
And like the cops didn't figure it out.
Yeah.
It's like,
they thought it was a show?
yeah. They were like, well, they couldn't do anything anyway.
Yeah.
So, it was amazing. And they kept doing stuff like that. And it's like, that's how you do it. You make people laugh.
Yeah, and
Don't
deliver
get
the
angry.
message. Yeah.
Yeah. Just be peaceful, make them laugh. Fuck with their heads.
Sure.
And
also kind of force people to be entertained, and people that might not understand what's happening might be able to put together the metaphor
exactly.
and get it.
And it's that moral of like resistance. Whatever anger you may feel is useless. Go with something peaceful and something humorous, and you will get your doors will just open.
Right. And artistically, I mean, I think the same question.
Yeah, to some extent.
Well, is that like, you have a problem with authority, but I imagine that as an artist, you have a problem with expectation.
Kind of, yeah. And I've also, I've spent my whole time. One of the things I really enjoy is that kind of messing with people's heads a bit. So
Sure.
you do one thing, and then you're like, okay, this is really going to fuck them up. you know.
How do you feel
Singing
about
with
me
the
now?
Yeah, how'd you like me now? You know, I'm a little bit like that. Yeah. Not overtly, but sometimes it kind of makes me laugh. You know, like to do sort of following a path down a certain way, and there is a sort of element of humour, element of it's kind of silly that I'm choosing to do this, and that's what I'm finding inspiring about it. You know.
Uh-huh. Who were your guys when you were growing up musically? I mean, what compelled you? What did you listen to? Why, how did you sort of find your way initially?
Well, really, to be honest, I listened to a lot, I loved Queen. I thought they were great when I was really small.
They are great.
They are great, yeah.
Yeah.
And they're pretty silly as well.
Yeah, yeah.
And then, as a teenager, I think, the band that really, really changed my life was R.E.M.
Yeah.
And Susie and the Banshees and Joy Division and Bob Dylan, bizarrely, was mixed in.
Emotional stuff, though. I mean, those are pretty, Joy Division and Susie and R.E.M. I mean, there was a lot of rawness and vulnerability that wasn't really.
Yeah,
angry.
I mean, my favourite show that I went to, I didn't go to many shows because not many bands came through Oxford, but my favourite show I ever saw then was Susie and the Banshees, and she was absolutely amazing. She was like the first sort of front person that I'd seen just. And it wasn't there was sort of not the singing wasn't wow, she's an amazing singer or anything. It was more just her presence.
Yeah.
She walks on the stage, it's this is her stage.
Yeah.
Even though you kind of want to watch Budgie on the drums a bit, but basically she is totally in command of the whole audience, but not in a look at me sort of way. She's just there doing it. And it really blew my mind,
And she was theatrical, though. I mean,
that's what I mean. Yeah,
not unlike Queen. Yeah, very theatrical, but
in a way that was punk. In a way that was
yeah.
It wasn't mannered at all. It was just that's what she wanted to do.
And also, she sort of turned femininity on its head.
Yeah, completely. Because she was kind of really sexy, but absolutely terrifying.
Yeah. That's the best kind of woman.
It is. Yeah, actually, you're right.
You don't always realize they're terrifying until you're too far in.
You might want to rewrite that.
Yeah? I don't know. I say it on stage when I do my stand-up act. I think it's absolutely necessary that you're deeply terrified of the person you love, because I don't know quite how you're going to act properly if you're not.
I agree.
So, all right. So those are very but even early on with Radiohead, I mean, your theatricality didn't rely on device. You just have a certain intensity to it. I mean, you have to reckon with your particular presence, but it didn't require. You didn't wear a leather jacket.
It's the most extraordinarily bad outfits.
Well, maybe that was the hook.
Yeah. I hope not.
But how did you find your way, on stage? Was it initially discomfort?
It was. I don't know. I think it took a long time, actually. I mean, when we because we signed to EMI, and we just said to them, we haven't got a clue what we're doing. I mean, it's very nice that you like our songs and everything, that you think we're going to be famous. But we haven't got a clue what we're doing. We've just left college. Give us some money for a van, and maybe a little bit of money for a hotel so we don't have to sleep in the van.
Yeah.
And leave us alone for a year and a half.
Yeah.
So we can figure this shit out. Unfortunately, sort of a year into that, we get this, we get this meeting with a manager saying,
yeah.
Creep's a massive hit in Israel first, and then in K-Rock here, and in New York, and you've got to go. You've got to go. So I'm still trying to figure this shit out.
A year into the van thing.
Yeah, and then suddenly I'm being, suddenly we're flown over here, and everyone's sort of expecting us to be rock stars, and we're like, okay,
yeah.
So
were you terrified, or were you sort of like?
It was you're just on a roll. You don't know, really.
Just show up,
not thinking about it particularly. probably should have thought about it a bit more.
Why?
Well, I don't know why. Anyway, I think I only personally felt like I started figuring it out, like, maybe towards the end of the Bends. And part of that, funnily enough, was just sort of doing videos and things and getting into that and getting into the idea of putting oneself forward on that in that way and being aware in a different way. I don't know.
So you can watch yourself. I mean,
watch yourself and not be like hiding behind the sofa. And
right.
shit.
That takes a while.
It does really.
Yeah.
It's a thing you have to learn. Like listening to your voice on tape for the first time and going, oh shit.
So you literally only toured for a year before you really hit.
Yeah, it was a bit weird. I mean, and it was kind of okay after that. We kind of managed it, like we were like, and that's all very nice. Thanks very much. But we were still booked into these small gigs, and it was fun because, people were turning up. So it was pretty wicked, really. I mean, it was just we were still learning what the hell was going on, I think, but at that time.
And did you feel immediately that the pressure was on, that you'd done Creep, and they're like, well, now you got to make us 10 more of those?
Yeah, I mean that was the first big battle we had, because I mean it's like our managers were as inexperienced as we were, and they were having their arms twisted at the time, so they were coming us to say we were in rehearsals writing stuff for a second record, and they were coming like saying, okay, where's the hit? And
right.
we were like, no, you're not supposed to say that.
The manager was saying that?
Yeah, and because they were getting loads of pressure, and so it all got a little bit weird and then everybody figured it out. Well, hang on a minute, once we'd all sort of figured out we sat in a room going, if we really are going to carry on doing this, we're going to do it on our own terms. And I threw my stamped on the floor a bit and like kicked people out and.
Like who? Like management or
yeah.
Were those guys that you started with?
But for a bit, I was like, just get the fuck out for a while while we figure this out, because basically, to me, it was I think I was clutching at straws, and my only experience really was art college. And at art college, they're teaching you to follow your instincts and teaching you to rely on what you have, on your work, and everything else will. Once you've got your work, everything else falls into place. Well, hopefully. So I was saying to everyone, I mean we all were. It's like if the music's good, if we make a good record, all this stuff will just come, whatever.
Right.
The only reason we're in this situation right now is by accident we made a tune that hit on what we were trying to do. So let's just carry on doing that, but not like trying to write a hit. Just carry on whatever that energy is. What we found, let's just work on that, and don't. And so we didn't really talk to anybody about anything until we were excited about the music. So much of the time it's the other way around. So much of the time, because at that time especially, you're involved in a huge corporate business.
Sure, a lot of people want to drain money out of you.
Well, I think it can just crumble your psyche, because you're just part of this extraordinary machine. Yeah. Like nowadays, I've only witnessed it recently in that form. I think, like going to, over to Studio City and to the sort of Paramount lot and being shown some clip. And, hi, I'm head of music, and I'm hi and you're like, oh, I remember this. Yeah. This is like Capitol Records. Right.
You forget, though, as an artist, don't you, that like originally, like there's almost something beautifully infantile about being a creative person and investing your life in that, because there's part of you that's sort of like, look what I made.
Yeah, you're a kid. Yeah. I mean, this is,
And then there's those assholes that are like, we like this. But it's not like the
we
other
like
thing.
this, but I think Bob Clearman really needs to change the drum sound on this tune if you want it to be a hit.
And who are you?
Yeah. Yeah. And if you don't do what I say, then we're not going to put it out. Ugh.
Horrendous.
I thought, okay.
But you didn't buckle to that.
No.
Beautiful.
It was get fucked, mate.
So the second album was The Bends?
Yes.
And that's a masterpiece, really. Do you feel good about it?
Yeah. I don't know. I haven't heard it in quite a while.
Well, I know, and I don't mean to bring up the past.
I know, it's fine by me. If I could remember, I'd tell you.
But I mean, you remember making that record. I mean,
Yes, I
obviously-
do. It was hard.
Yeah.
But then, you know, thus ensues the discovery that every record you make is hard, and if it isn't, you're in serious trouble. Although, actually, this Atoms Peace record was not that hard. It was quite fun.
It's a great record.
Thank you.
And when you started to evolve, like, I mean, I guess we can skip through a lot of stuff because there are certain, you know, albums of yours that I listen to, you know, compulsively, like over and over again. You know, not in an obsessive way, but it just seemed to work for me. Like the one thing I noticed about, you know, certainly that like OK Computer and Kid A and some of the other stuff is that there's a depth to there's something that you guys do, and I'll say you as well, where you know you can constantly listen to these songs and then all of a sudden realize like how am I getting deeper into this? You know, this is just a song. How does it keep revealing itself? You know, with every listen. You know, and that to me is a real sign of an amazing piece of art. So the one message you got out of art school was just trust your instincts. What were you studying in art school?
I studied art. I studied. They kind of made you study everything, but I ended up. I kind of wanted to paint, but I wasn't that good. I'm still not that good, and I still want to paint.
But you do it, right? You did some of the album work,
I
right?
do
Yeah.
occasionally, but it's. I'm hampered by, like a lot of people I know, I'm hampered by that thing when you first pick up the paintbrush and you. I'm alright for about like 5-10 minutes, and then I hate it so much. So it tends to be one of those things where me and Stanley, like Stanley is amazing because he's so painstaking. I can't remember the word he uses. He gets really, you know, he can work on something for days.
Who's
he
this?
Doesn't, the guy who does, we do art, the artwork with.
Yeah.
He does the artwork.
Yeah.
I went to art college with him. So anyway, they kind of kicked me out of painting.
Yeah.
Because I went AWOL for a term and then turned up, and all I'd done was paintings of Jesus.
What was,
And they were appalling as well.
what were they? What was Jesus
Oh,
doing?
there was one called the Bullshit Machine, and that was just one of these.
The Bullshit Machine?
Critique of the critiques.
Yeah.
So I put these things up on the wall, and like
Yeah.
all hell breaks loose, and because you have these critiques,
Yeah.
so your peers shoot you down.
What was Jesus doing though?
I don't know. It was, it was awful. I mean, even I thought it was awful.
The Bullshit Machine.
I
Though,
was
that could have
drunk
been the
most
name of a
that.
record.
I was drunk most.
Oh,
of
really? So you're living the life.
A life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway,
Okay.
but then I got into video and computers quite early on, and it was kind of fun, you know. I just never. Art college to me was one of those things where I knew I wasn't really an artist particularly, but the relief of living and breathing this sort of creative thing and working with other people and watching how they worked and being taught to respect that as a thing, you know, being exposed to so much creativity and to so much modern art, and was amazing, and you know, completely changed my life. Because it made me confident about who I was, you know, and that was wicked. You know, where were we with this?
That's good. Just what you studied in art school, and that makes perfect sense. You know, to have an appreciation.
It's just everything, really.
Sure. So the evolution from, you know, what Radiohead was known as initially, and then, you know, when you sort of, you know, untethered yourself from hooks or the necessity to have them, and then.
I keep thinking maybe I should like rethink that. Maybe I should come up with a chorus, because I do actually like songs with choruses.
I don't want to put pressure on you. I think you're doing fine.
There's a couple, like by accident. There's a couple of choruses, you know, but they usually happen by accident.
But yeah, on this record, there's
a chorus.
There is a couple.
I remember distinctly one flying by the other day.
But there was some decision. I mean, you kind of were a bit of a guitar band early on.
Oh yeah.
You know, and Johnny is not on this record.
No.
And it's not so much that, and it's not a Radiohead record, and I understand, but there obviously was some point where you were like, let's not do the guitar so much.
With Radiohead, yes.
Yeah.
Which was hard, you know. It was hard for them. It was hard for me too, but it was sort of one of those things where, again, it was like, do we really just carry on like this? Is this it? I mean, because, you know, I was just, every time I picked up the guitar, nothing was happening, and I wasn't listening to guitar music, so, you know, so there wasn't, like, to me, no choice. And also, Johnny in particular is so incredible at picking up any machine that makes music and doing something with it.
Yeah.
Like, instantly. I mean, it's insane. Like, he did this piece, I mean, which is why I think he enjoys the orchestral stuff, because it's as much about whatever method he chooses and what instruments he chooses to put together and how they're tuned and whatever as anything else. Like, he did this, one of my favourite things he ever did was this quarter tone piano piece where he took one of our stand-up pianos, and he rather than the normal scale, everything just moves up incrementally in quarter tones.
And he had it retuned for that?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And it sounds completely insane. It sits in our studio, and every now and again I sit, and it you know, to me it makes, I wish, but it makes no sense.
Yeah.
It's impossible to make any, and he wrote a whole piece around it. At the moment, you know, we're talking about different scales, and he wants to teach me loads of other scales, non-Western scales, and like, I'm so into it, but I don't know where the hell to start. And so I kind of thought at the times, like, I've grown up with these guys, and I know they can pick this stuff up. It's just going to take a bit of... I need to pick it up as well. You know,
Yeah.
we're all... But to me, like, the whole thing is, part of creativity sometimes is when you are wildly out of your depth.
Oh, yeah. It's
You
good
know.
because there's a vulnerability to that in and of itself, to like, I don't know.
Yeah, I've got no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah.
We're going to do a string section on this, and oh yeah, okay. And we're going to
Yeah.
this one, yeah. I mean, it was just... Yeah, the funny thing is, you know, Kid A in the end, to me, I think when people listen to it now, is you can kind of see why that they're not that far apart. OK Computer and Kid A, to me.
Right.
I mean, it was just that we're choosing to use certain instruments that lots of people associated with things that were, I don't know, unworthy or whatever, you know,
Which
part
is
of
not
the electric world.
Oh, really?
Electronic world.
So there was some condescension there from...
No, it was just, oh yeah, he's listening, oh, Thom Yorke's discovered Aphex Twin, whoopee-doo.
Oh, no.
You know, it's like, I don't think Aphex Twin was too chuffed about that either, to be honest, the few times I've talked to him.
Uh-huh. I talked to Thomas Dolby.
Oh, right, yeah. I walked in, like, he was at my school, right? Sorry.
At art school?
No, at my school. We went to the same school.
And when you were kids?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
I walked into, like, the main music room at school in my first year, wet behind the ears, 11 years old, and there's this weird-looking guy with, like, and I mean, I knew what these things were. He had a Moog synthesizer, he had a drum machine, he had all this shit laid out, and I was like, wow.
Yeah.
And it was Thomas, and he was the first, like, famous musician to come out of the school.
Was he visiting?
No, he was a kid
Still there?
School there, and he was a bit older than me. He was like in the 5th year when I was in the 1st year or something.
Well, the reason I brought him up was that at the time he wanted to make the sounds he wanted to make, there was no machinery that would make it.
Yeah.
So he had to figure out, and it sounds like Johnny does the same thing, he had to figure out how to make sounds that he wanted to make with the technology that was available, and I think he made his first drum machine out of a light switcher.
That's probably true. I
Yeah.
mean, there's a lot of that at my school, because, you know, the school I went to was...
What school?
Abingdon School,
Yeah.
for boys.
Is it prep school?
Or
what- I don't know.
private school with
Private
no
school.
girls.
No girls. So you got to put that sexual frustration into something.
I hit puberty at 11
Yeah.
and walked into a bloody boys' school. It was great.
It made you who you are, man.
Right. Let's not pursue that, shall we? That particular element of it. There's a lot of, like, scientists, kids of scientists, and so on, that go to that school.
And the expectation was to go into that, mathematics, putting things together.
No, I mean, they were just kids of smart parents, so it was there was lots of sort of smart kids, I guess. And Johnny's smart in a very particular way, you know, he always was.
He went there too?
Mm-hmm.
What's his
we
father
all
do?
went there. His father wasn't around,
Oh.
but he was, they were like RAF kids, him and his brother.
Mm-hmm.
And we all went to the same school together.
Wow. And so is everybody cool with this?
Well, the Atoms thing.
Yeah.
I think so. We took a year. This was supposed to be a year off anyway.
Yeah.
We just declared a year off. Year off because I think it was kind of good for our heads really to actually officially say nothing.
Really?
Happening. Yeah.
Tired?
Well, I think that you get to that thing where like you get together because you don't know what else to do.
Right.
And that's not good. You should get together because you want to get together because you got a good idea.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, and when I saw you, I noticed that Johnny was like spent a lot of time on the ground.
Yeah, he always does that. Yeah.
Yeah, he's moving some stuff around. He's got some things going.
Oh man, that's a simple setup. You should see what he has in the studio.
Oh really?
That is nothing.
He's just like a lot of
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because going back to the Kid A thing, like so when we started talking about doing it more electronically and stuff, so Colin and Johnny then went off and spent thousands of pounds on modular synthesis, you know.
Yeah.
And basically learned how to use it in a week. All of it.
So they're wizards.
Just insane.
Yeah.
You know? And Colin taught himself to use MPC drum machines and samplers, and they just did it, man. They just sat there and did it. And Johnny taught himself to use Max MSP, which is this super high level like sound processing tool. They can do that.
And when you play, when you sing to this stuff, and when you move away from the guitars, like you know, when people sort of condescend, it's sort of like, oh, great electronic music, but you feel you can integrate your humanity into that.
Yeah, to me, it's not even an issue anymore. I mean, if you look where music is now, at least not what's happening in the mainstream, but everywhere else, it's just ceased to even be an issue that you're mixing these things up.
Right.
Know?
Do you miss the guitar?
I played it last night.
Yeah.
But it's useful.
Sure. Do you write on the guitar?
Sometimes, not much anymore. Not at the moment. I write a lot on piano at the moment.
And when I listen to the Atoms for Peace record, I sort of wondered, do these things start as just a groove, and then you kind of experiment to find that groove, and then or the lyrics there before, or do you sometimes evolve lyrics with the music?
This was all born out of like the idea of things evolving from the grooves,
right?
You know? And then we jam a lot. I mean, not today, but
I can see that it's ready to go.
It's a little quiet in there at the moment.
It's amazing to walk through that place. I don't know if people can't see us, but we're in a mansion on Laurel Canyon in the
rundown mansion,
rundown mansion, and it's just it's like Exile on Main Street, man.
Yeah,
it's like,
well, the girls are coming shortly. We just thought we needed a few hours off.
Yeah. Yeah, sure.
And the drugs.
Sure. You get all the drugs are coming.
You got to stay clean for a bit during the day, otherwise things get a bit out of hand.
Someone's got to wake up Bobby Keys so he can play sax.
Yeah.
Yeah. But okay, so it is groove generated. The sound
completely,
and the voice,
and then and the riffs were coming basically out of that guitar, piano, bass, synth, and so a lot of it we took away and wrote to it afterwards. But it was born out of the fact that the sort of joy of just just coming up with the grooves, and they weren't like. They weren't from cold. We'd start with some sort of mechanical programmed thing that I had,
right,
to set us off,
right.
So which makes it forces these guys to play in a certain way. So you come like the meter, or where the one falls, or where the bass line starts is not where you would intuitively normally put it,
right.
Which is good.
Yeah.
So it sets you off in a new place.
Right.
That was the whole thing. The whole thing for this band is that for me is like, because they work very quickly, and they bring all this crazy shit
right
together really fast, and it's just a different thing, and it's very much just about grooves in the end. And
how did you and Flea come together for this?
Well, it was a weird one, because it was just I'd seen them a few times backstage at Chili Peppers gigs, and I kind of knew them, and then Nigel and I went saw them in London, and John and Flea were going on about the Eraser.
Your album.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The first one I did on my own, and I was quite surprised because they'd listened to it a lot, and they were asking, how did you put it together, and they were really into it.
Uh-huh.
And I was, well, okay.
Yeah.
And then a few months later when I was thinking...
And that was all you, right? The
That was me and Nigel, yeah.
Yeah. And Nigel's been with you since...
Johnny wrote a few, on the first tune, he wrote the piano riff with me.
And Nigel's been with you from the beginning?
Since the bands.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he was the engineer on the bands.
Okay.
And then we decided, enough of adults, we can do it ourselves. Anyway, and then, he... where was... Yeah, with the flea thing. And then it was... I had this niggling little worm in my head where, like, I want to try and make the Eraser thing real. Because I'd done it sort of with Nigel, using mostly stuff written on a laptop.
Yeah.
And a bit of bass, and that was it.
Yeah.
But it was looking at it thinking, hang on, the bass is like the lead instrument on this. And I played bass. And the funny thing is, like, a lot of the time when I was playing the bass, I was thinking of Flea, because obviously I love watching him play. And there's not many bass players I know that play like lead bass.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I asked him if he was up for doing it, and asked Joey in the same day, and they both said yes, like a couple of hours later. And it was kind of nice because it went from being something that was just sort of like a silly pipe dream to, ooh,
And had
this is really cool.
And had Joey and Flea work together?
Oh, but they knew each other. I mean, because... Yeah,
Joey's like a guy, right? He's like
I mean, he's everywhere.
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean, part on the LA scene, I guess.
And he played with REM as well.
That's how I first properly met him. Yeah, and we became friends. We've hung out for years, on and off, whenever I'm around, and because he still plays with Beck sometimes, and and Nigel's produced Beck, and we also just hang out quite a lot.
And do you find that? Given that, is there any sort of historical element in your head where you get the opportunity to play with guys that played with bands that you respected, that it's like, kind of, wow, this is cool?
But that's, I mean, yeah, it sometimes it kind of spins me out a bit, but it's actually really lovely because, it's like, it's a different thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been playing with the same guys since I was 16.
Uh-huh.
Other than this.
Yeah.
So it was a bit of a mind-blowing thing when we first did it, really. And it was good because I sort of felt like, years of sort of only being in that environment and just thinking, okay, well, it just opens you up to other ideas.
Sure.
And it's in a way you kind of relax a bit.
Yeah.
Thank God for that,
Right. Was it intimidating at all? I mean, to play with Flea in any way, or are you grounded enough as a musician and a performer that, because Flea is sort of he's a menacing little genius, that guy, in my mind. Was there a part of you that's sort of like, I gotta keep up with Flea here?
Yeah, not really. No,
that's
because
good.
he's always been like really sweet. He comes to it with his own, like he gets it,
Was there
like we all do, really.
Yeah. Is there the excitement of discovery? Do you guys feel it when you're all, like, I imagine when you're doing, when you're creating from grooves only, that there has to be that moment where you're all going and you look at each other and like,
yeah,
this is it.
No, it's funny. Yeah. One of the things I really have enjoyed about it is like, it's funny, like when you're in a space like we are today and you're working through shit and you're into it and you think, oh, that's cool. And then when we started, when we did our first show at the Echoplex, just this crazy little warm-up thing. And
I've been to that place. Was that recently?
No, it was a while ago, 3 years ago, maybe.
It's a little rock club.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Little.
Yeah.
And the footage of it back, it was insane, man. It was insane. It was one thing, it just was, there's sort of this crazy, I don't know, it had lots of energy to it. So that got us really excited.
Yeah.
It's one thing to be excited in a room and the other thing to actually watch it back, and it's even more, it's better than that.
Yeah.
It's a nice feeling.
Oh, it's a great feeling.
Yeah.
These are Red Wings?
Mm-hmm.
Love them. Got them.
The best, right?
Yeah. Love them. So when you travel, do you bring your wife and kids or what?
They're coming tomorrow, yeah. The kids are at school, so they can't.
How old are they?
My son is 12, and my daughter's 8.
Is that do you love it?
Yeah, it's really cool. I mean, yeah, it's, Noah's 12 years old, man. I mean, he's going through the changes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it's lovely to watch.
Yeah.
It's super cool.
The voice.
Almost.
Yeah.
It's like everything's skateboarding and surfing.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Is he? Does he have any interest in the guitars or anything?
He's a really great drummer.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That must be thrilling.
It is wicked, yeah. Finally got him like a real kit recently.
Oh, yeah?
And he's insane to watch. He comes back and he's been taught all these jazz tricks already.
Wow.
It's a bit weird.
Are you a jazz fan?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, Mingus is my man.
Yeah.
Although when I'm here, I listen to Duke Ellington a lot.
Yeah, big
It
band's
really
good.
works.
You gotta swing, man. You gotta swing. When I was listening to music, some of my first impressions that, even though it's electronic, that there was definitely something primitive about rhythms. That, for some reason, the first time I listened to it, I kept thinking about Senegalese music, and I kept thinking about like Baba Mahl's early stuff, or Baba Mahl, Monster Sec.
Oh, I don't know.
It's an album that I have, and I don't know a lot about him because I think he got more pop oriented. But then I started sort of tripping out on, Brian Eno, John Hassel, and guys who kind of used electronics early on, but also there was a primitive thread through there.
I think because we make the choice. It's interesting, like when we're setting up, we're working on shit at the moment, and we try mixing electronic sounds in with things. Within the percussion and the drums, just triggering stuff. And it's more exciting when you're literally hitting shit.
Yeah.
And you can hear it in the room.
Yeah.
It's really cool, and we're kind of staying with that because it fits together. It has and. I listen to a lot of sort of I can't tell you the names of it and stuff. I randomly download this little thing. But I am into that. I do. One of the things when I first started doing it was I was fascinated by the idea that you write a rhythm on a machine, then someone can interpret that and make it in real space. On
a organic instrument.
Yeah, and also fascinated by the sort of rhythms I was tending to program. Once you did that, once we started doing it, once you did that, you realise these are kind of like quite, like, like African or like something, or I hate
primitive.
To use that. Primitive. Primitive is a better word. Like, that's mad. That sort of concept of just multiple rhythms and they ebb and flow because they're being played by humans, and la la.
Sure.
It's a nice fit. It's a nice thing. I find it really fascinating.
Well, that's sort of the whole, I guess, not to trivialize it in any way, but to, to sort of like, if there is any power to a drum circle.
Oh, no, I love all that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it's very, it's very, I don't want to be too punny or trite, but, it's very hands-on, man.
Yeah, it's the same. It's the same thing as within dance music that like getting people on alpha waves, trance and la la la.
You like that stuff?
I'm not really. It's a bit shit, but but I do like electronic music and I do like electronic dance music, and the good stuff to me is the stuff where, you get locked into a state of mind as you listen to it, and I think that's kind of the point. Exactly the same to me as like listening to really good Can, lots of stuff on Tego Mago, for example.
Sure.
It's like
that.
Yeah. It's like, it's nothing. There's nothing particular, but you can pin your finger on and say like, okay, that's what it is that I like. It's just. It's in a particular. It takes you into a headspace, and I think we started first like Radiohead first because we listened to Can shitloads when we did Kid A, and it was that idea that there's nothing particular that you can put your finger on about this other than whatever it is, whatever that was, it just went past. Mm-hmm. That's it.
And also, you started to sing from that place.
Oh yeah, as well. Yeah, totally. So everything. It was like, it's whatever. You get together and you play, and something happens, and you can't put your finger on it, but it's whatever it is, it happens between the musicians, and you're lucky that the tape was going at the time. That's the point of making records now, and it's different when you're working on a laptop, and it's a little bit less like that. But the same with this, like, you know, we got together at the end and we were all buzzing on what was happening within us, between us and the band. So we thought, fuck it, we'll just go into the studio for 3 days and we'll just play. Just like almost like a weird sort of celebration.
Yeah.
And Nigel's at the controls, and you just get these waves.
Yeah.
Of shit just kicks off.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Maybe it's only like 8 bars or whatever,
Yeah.
or maybe it's. But when it does, it's like there's no rational explanation why that should be better than that bit. And I would always like go back and go, yeah, but what about that bit just before? What that bit about afterwards? And I'd just be like, okay, let's listen to them.
Yeah.
And you listen and you go, yeah, he's right. It was like, in theory, all the bits are there, but they don't. Whatever it is, the extra wave.
Whatever happened.
Whatever it is, that's it.
That's the magic.
It's probably the same with a drum circle if you're stoned enough.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's great, and the stuff's going well here, right?
Yeah.
And I appreciate you spending the time to talk to me.
Oh, yeah, no, I enjoyed it. Nice to meet you, mate.
Nice to meet you. That's it. I had a lovely chat. I connected with the guy, and I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you for listening. Please go to WTFpod.com for all your WTF pod needs. Get some merch, check the episode guide, leave a comment, get the lips and deals, start your own podcast, get the first 100 WTFs on DVD. There's a number of things you can go there. Check my schedule. I'm going to be in Montreal this week. I'll be doing a live WTF there, a solo show there, and a bunch of little shows. Friday and Saturday, you can go to the Just for Laughs website and check out how to get tickets for that stuff. What else? Oh, between me and you, there's going to be big news tomorrow. If you're, in the Maron world, there's big news tomorrow. I'll leave it at that. I'm right now, I'm that weird mixture of, too much bad food, too little sleep, and a lot of coffee. So I have to go sit down in another room outside of the garage. Okay? Boomer lives!